Picture this. You hold the world in the palm of your hand. Your word is absolute law. Your armies are terrifyingly vast, and your enemies literally tremble at the mere mention of your name. But what happens when untouchable rulers push those enemies just a step too far? Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're peering into the blood-stained corners of history to witness the dramatic, almost cinematic moments when the illusion of absolute control shatters into a million pieces.
And that brings us to a really profound question. What actually happens when an untouchable dictator crosses the wrong conqueror? We spend a lot of time studying how empires rise, but honestly, the visceral, humiliating, and brutal downfalls of historical autocrats who believe they were completely invincible, that tells us so much more about human nature. Because when a dictator makes that one fatal miscalculation, the end doesn't just come on a battlefield. It comes in the form of total psychological destruction.
Section 1, The Thunderbolt in a Cage, The Fall of Bayezid I. All right, let's dive right into this, starting with a clash of two massive egos that led to one of the most shocking demises of the 15th century.
First, we have Timur, often known in the West as Tamerlane. He was a ruthless conqueror forging a massive empire stretching all the way from Central Asia to Persia. His dominance was absolute. Well, at least until it was challenged by the fiery Ottoman Sultan, Bayezid I, who was famously nicknamed the Thunderbolt. Now, Bayezid made a fatal mistake. He unseated local lords who were loyal to Timur. This defiance sparked a powder keg, leading directly to the catastrophic Battle of Ankara in 1402. Bayezid suffered a crushing defeat and was taken captive. But here's the thing, Timur didn't just want a military victory. He wanted to break the Thunderbolt's spirit entirely. So he placed his rival into an iron cage, parading him around Anatolia as a living, breathing trophy.
The historical accounts say he was used as a footstool during feasts. Really try to imagine the sensory horror of that reality for a second. The clinking of heavy iron chains, the roar of drunken laughter from his captors, the absolute psychological torment of a once great ruler forced into literal subservience while his enemy dined. Stripped of all his dignity, legend says Bayezid ultimately ended his own torment by repeatedly striking his head against the cold iron bars of his cage. It is a dark, terrifying end to a man who thought he was untouchable. Let's see how this theme builds in Section 2, A Coward on an Island, the Khwarezmian Collapse. We're transitioning over to the Middle East now, to witness the astonishingly rapid fall of Shah Muhammad and his incredibly wealthy Khwarezmian Empire. And this quote brilliantly illustrates the sheer, blinding arrogance that precedes a historic fall. Looking out from his highly fortified city of Samarkand, the Shah actually scoffed at the impending threat of Genghis Khan. He boasted, "The Mongols are so many that they could fill this moat with their horsewhips." He truly believed his defenses were impenetrable and his power was absolute. But, as we're about to see, that confidence was built on a foundation of terrible diplomatic blunders. Talk about a fast and panic-inducing unraveling. It started when the Shah foolishly executed Genghis Khan's diplomatic envoys and merchants. Bad idea. In response, Genghis Khan unleashed a literal tempest of ruin. As the Mongols tore through his empire, the Shah's absolute authority didn't just crumble. Actually, scratch that, it completely evaporated into thin air. His paranoia grew so intense that his own troops plotted to kill him. Forewarned, the Shah abandoned his tent in the dead of night, only to find it riddled with his own men's arrows the next morning. The supreme irony here is incredible. The untouchable ruler of the Middle East, fleeing in absolute terror from both his own army and his enemy. He barely escaped by flinging himself into a boat with raging Mongol horsemen literally drowning in the Caspian Sea behind him in their desperate, bloodthirsty frenzy to catch him. And this is where that frantic chase finally ends. January 10, 1221. Just contrast the immense, sprawling wealth of the vast Khwarezmian Empire with the cold, wet, miserable reality of this moment. Shah Muhammad took his last breath on a tiny, desolate island, succumbing to pleurisy and sheer exhaustion. His empire was in ashes, his power was totally gone, and he died completely isolated. But Genghis Khan's vengeance didn't stop with the Shah. Historical records detail the terrifying fate of Inalchuq, the governor who originally sparked the war by murdering Khan's merchants in the first place. When the Mongols finally captured him alive, a simple execution just wasn't going to cut it to balance the scales. To exact poetic vengeance, Khan had molten silver poured directly into Inalchuq's eyes and ears. It's a chilling testament to the terrifying consequences of crossing a conqueror.
and the horror escalated to a truly cinematic scale in cities like Merv and Nishapur. Simple death was not enough. The Mongols required total theatrical annihilation. After breaching Nishapur, every living thing, and I mean including the cats and dogs, was destroyed. When the Mongols heard people were playing dead, they ordered all heads to be severed. They meticulously constructed pyramids of skulls, one for men, one for women, and a final, absolutely horrifying pyramid of children's heads. The city was left a desolate wasteland.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Emperor's Living Footstools, Justinian II. Our journey through the ashes of broken power shifts now to the Byzantine Empire in 695 AD. We're looking at the brutal deposition and the terrifying return of Emperor Justinian II.
In history, he became known as Rhinotometos, the slit-nosed emperor. See, when Justinian II was deposed, his enemies didn't just exile him, they mutilated him. By slicing off his nose, they believed they were permanently disqualifying him from ruling, because Byzantine tradition held that an emperor had to be physically unblemished. Humiliated and disfigured, he was cast out. But they made one massive, fatal error. They left him alive.
For an entire decade in exile, Justinian didn't just fade away into obscurity. Instead, he spent 10 years stewing in a simmering, obsessive rage. He bided his time, forging powerful new alliances with Bulgars and Slavs, and then he launched a terrifying comeback, reclaiming the Byzantine throne in a tidal wave of terror. His very first order of business was dealing with the usurpers who had mutilated him. He fettered them in heavy chains and dragged them into the massive public arena of the Hippodrome.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the sheer theatricality of his revenge. Just picture the scene, the sands of the Hippodrome, a massive jeering crowd, and Justinian II, now wearing a shining golden prosthesis over his severed nose. He sits on his throne and literally uses the chained men who usurped him as living footrests. He forced them to endure the absolute maximum public degradation before ultimately having them beheaded. It was a brutal spectacle perfectly designed to sear his dominance into the minds of everyone watching.
Section 4, the psychology of vengeance. All of this brings us to a super fascinating question. Why? What is the underlying psychological cause of these brutally excessive historical demises? Why the molten silver? Why the iron cages and the living footstools?
So the crucial takeaway here involves a concept known as inequity and revenge. When a conqueror or ruler has been wronged, whether it's the murder of their merchants, a betrayal of an alliance, or literally getting their face mutilated, they feel an intense internal imbalance. To restore that psychological equity, they require an exaggerated theatrical display. The punishment can't just neatly fit the crime. No, it has to utterly annihilate the offender's dignity and existence just to make the avenger feel like the scales are finally even.
We're looking at a massive psychological disconnect here. To the avenger, justice is finally served, the universe is righted. But to the recipient, or maybe their surviving loyalists, the act is viewed as a monstrous, entirely unfair overreaction. And this divergent perception is exactly why history is drenched in endless, brutal cycles of vengeance. Every single time the scales are balanced for one side, they are completely shattered for the other, guaranteeing that the wheel of violence just keeps on turning.
I want to end this explainer with a question to leave you thinking. As we've seen today, from the iron cages of Anatolia to the skull pyramids of Merv and all the way to the sands of the Byzantine Hippodrome, human nature in the face of shattered power is genuinely terrifying. When absolute control collapses, does the resulting vacuum always demand a disproportionate sacrifice of blood? It certainly seems like history's answer is written in the tragic, violent ends of those who believed they were untouchable. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I really encourage you to keep questioning the historical forces that shape our world.